Lady or gentleman, welcome so much to another episode. If you're new here, karibu sana. My name is Rozitta. Before I dive into today's episode, I want to make a major announcement that, lo and behold, Beauty for Ashes has finally launched its merchandise. Those who have been following me for a long time understand it when I say Beauty for Ashes. And right now we have given our merchandise so that we can own and wear our testimonies proudly. Feel free to check us out on Instagram, or you can click the link on my description box to get in touch with me. The guest I'm hosting today needs no introduction. He is a man I've followed for quite a long time, ever since I got to hear about him about 2 years ago. And he's a man that is gifted with men and with great charisma. Lady or gentleman, introducing to you BennyHinn Walubengo. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Such an honor to have you here. You look amazing.
Thank you.
You look as charismatic as on photos.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sana.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me. And it is a great show.
Asante sana.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself briefly to our guests so that they can know why am I so excited about BennyHinn.
Well, my name is BennyHinn Walubengo. I'm a student at Daystar University, study international relations and political science. I'm also the president and founder of the I Speak Society, which is a group of young people that trains oratory, business and networking, and leadership. Above everything else, I'm a child of God. I'm also gifted in writing, so I'm an author and a speech trainer.
I love meeting authors so much because I'm one. There's just something special about authors.
Yes.
So you're really doing an amazing job, and I applaud you for the impact that you're having on our young people.
Thank you.
You said today we are going to be discussing on rejection, and on our pre-conversation you mentioned there's so many different types of rejection, and I'm so curious to learn.
Yes.
So the ball is on to you.
Oh, okay.
Rejection, what is it, and why is it so important for us to deal with it as an issue?
Okay. First of all, allow me just to give a small snippet of why am I speaking about this.
Yes.
Because when it comes now to addressing things, there are people who address things from a level of knowledge.
Yeah.
You read in books, you know, so you have some knowledge. There are people who address things from a level of testimony.
Yeah.
That you know what, I'm a personal testimony of this. There are people who address things from a level of revelation. They read the Bible and they got a revelation.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not just talking about it from a level of knowledge or revelation, but from a level of personal testimony.
Wow.
Because as a young person, I'm generally outgoing. And so I grew up as a child who was always open-minded. I knew a lot of current affairs. By the time I was in class 6, class 7, I knew about Barack Obama, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. And all these things were in my fingertips. And I even had the ability to cram numbers, phone contacts. By the time I was in, I think, class 6, class 7, I knew more than 15 contacts, even till date.
Wow.
It's something, it's a coherent ability. And sometimes I would answer questions in class, or rather that challenge teachers openly. Sometimes they would say things and I would ask them questions. I was always inquisitive. And they could be intimidated by this. And so most of the time, there's this word that I could always hear, kiherehere, you know, from teachers, friends, different people whom I could meet. And so at some point, I could always be silenced in certain environments. And even back at home, it's something that I also faced in some way. And so out of this, I really struggled a bit because at some point I almost changed my personality to become more silent, because now going to high school, being suspended in more than 7 schools.
7?
Yes. And so it was crazy. And at some point my mom was telling me, just kill this personality. Just be a silent kid, go to school, don't ask questions, you know, be a good boy. But for me, there was always a fire in me. Sometimes I would ask questions when I see that the food hasn't been cooked well. I could ask questions. When I see people being beaten in a certain way, almost being killed, I could ask questions. When I hear about people have been raped, there are homosexuals in the school, and I could write letters and articles about this. And so these are things that I could question. And so I realized that most of the time growing up, it is now something that triggered me to do a research in terms of this thing called rejection. And I'm a spiritual son to Pastor Tim Wangi. And last Sunday he was preaching something that messed me up about David. And he said that David, the reason Astray was being treated the way he was being treated by the father, number one, David was a son of another mother.
Oh.
Another thing also, the reason Astray even David was not with the brothers, he was in the wilderness taking care of sheep and small flock. The father maybe might have wanted him to die in the wilderness with the bear and the lion, and so that he could not take accountability. And David was a rejected man. And it triggered me now to go to the Bible after the service to study the rejections of David, the rejection patterns. David was rejected by the father, was rejected by the brothers, he was rejected by Saul, he was rejected by his own men, he was rejected by the wife whom he was given as a trophy, he was rejected by fellow kings. The man faced so many types of rejection. And even when you read through the Bible, rejection is all over, from Genesis to Revelations. You read the story of Abraham. Abraham is himself. Kings would accept him not because of him. They will even accept him because of the beautiful wife. He in himself faced rejection. He faced rejection from Saul, a man whom he had empowered. You read the Bible, you see rejection all over. You go to the life of Jacob. He's a man who faced rejection in one way or the other. You look at Joseph. You look at Daniel. And now I was triggered now to do a research. So in the process nikipiga research, number one nika discover the first type of rejection into environmental rejection. Yes, environmental rejection. Environmental rejection is where your environment rejects you subconsciously. For example, ukitokea nje, si lazima msee akwambie kuna jua. Utatoka nje na ujue kuna jua out of the heat. Maybe hiyo jua inaweza kosa kushine sana in terms of light. But kuna venye utasikia hiyo heat na ujue kuna jua. Environmental rejection ndo wase wengi uface. Environmental rejection ile place yenye you've been born in a family that's broken. Your dad or mom is not there. Either they divorced or your dad maybe might have passed away, your mom. The second one is that you are born in a society where your parents are both there, they are present but they are absent.
Present and absent.
Present and absent. Because tukipiga hiyo research ya story ya parenthood, there is a present parent, there's a present absent, and there is an absent completely. Present ni mwenye ako present in 3 dimensions, emotionally, spiritually na physically. Na iko na effects zake. Present absent ni either mwenye ako present physically but emotionally amehata ama spiritually amehata. So ako present either in one dimension. Alafu present absent completely ni ule mwenye amjai patana. I have a friend who has never met the father up to date. He's 25, 26. And so there are such issues now. So you'll come to discover that all these things have effects. Environmental rejection, it's a voice that does not come in form of sound, but it comes in form of atmosphere. You sit in a house, you feel rejected. Either you've been raised by a relative, your mom is abroad looking for money so that you can go to school, you live in your auntie's house or uncle's house, unaona venye wanakutreat, ikifika story ya kupeana food, wakienda certain family gatherings, kuna venye unabaki. There's a way in which you are treated. Environmental rejection, it does not come in words but it comes in actions. Unaona hakuna msemo aliambia David you are rejected, but he was in the wilderness. Nadi wakisema parade your sons, David hakuitwa ka son. And so you come to realize that David he was a man that faced rejection. And that is why when David alipatana na Saul, you can see that David aliona Saul as a father because David had never found a father. That is why David was hurt when Saul started fighting him. He was like, you see, when Saul hurt David, David never ran home. He hid in a cave. Because even at home, he never had a father. And so you come to realize that David is a man who faced rejection all through. It was never said in words, but it was said in actions. That is why even my brothers zake walienda kupigana. David was a man who had fought the bear and the lion. But hakupelekwa battlefield ka soldier. Alipelekwa kama say water boy. Peleka food na maji, come and pay feedback. And even when he went in the field again, the brother reminded him whom he was. Told him, who have you left the sheep with? Meaning, kwa family venye kuna kwa nole msa kuosha vyombo, uno wa kumop. Meaning that was his role. The role of the brothers was to defend the nation. His role was to take care of the small flock. Environmental rejection, haikujangi in terms of words, inakujangi in very, very small actions. Unapatanga watu huyu wakivizitiwa, kuna huyu mwenye pesa itatumiwa mwalimu. It comes in such small things. it communicates subconsciously. And environmental rejection, hiyo ndio kitu yenyewe ina silence wase personalities. It is a dream killer. It kills the confidence and the ability of people. There are many Christians who have faith, but they don't have confidence. Because when you study that pattern of confidence, there are 3 types of confidence: internal, external, and mental. The internal confidence, ukiangalia fiti, in itself, the way it is wrapped up. Internal confidence is linked sana na faith. I have met people who have great ideas, they have great plans, they even have capital, but they cannot step up. And when you ask them, what's the reason? It is because they are lacking internal confidence, because their confidence was wounded when they were young, because of the environmental rejection. And anytime they want to do something great, they feel like that thing will fail. They are not sure. Sometimes it can even hide behind perfectionism. Nasema mimi ni perfectionist. Wacha ningoje kwanza kitu ikuwe fiti, but in real sense you will be rejected subconsciously. And anytime you want to dare something that is extremely high, you feel like this is not something I can do.
So for me.
Because there were small things that they were being done to you. You know, hiyo story ya umeona mkushago family gathering. Kuna wenye wameng'ara na kuna mwenye ako kitchen anapika. Kuna mwenye anapaswa kuni. Hizo ukianza kupatiwa hizo roles, ukigrow up kuna venye uta grow up subconsciously na your rejection mentality. You always feel like this is not for me. And even when you date, even when you grow up, umekatia dem kwa funky na niambia, uliona nini kwangu? And when you look at her, she's extremely pretty. She knows that she's pretty, but there's something in her that was released as a voice, and she has walked with it as a reality. And the problem is that the society and circumstances will combine to confirm that rejection. There are things that will happen. So for example, let's say dem alizaliwa kwa familia yenye mzake na masake wako kwa pamoja. Maybe the dad left the girl. So ameriziwa na single mother. And then aende shule akiwa primary school, kuna venye pia anatritiwa class. And then akuja high school, ahatbreakiwa na boy. Aingie campus, apigwe ball na boy amwache tena. It's a confirmation of that rejection. So it's a consistent confirmation. So hadi ukipreach huyu msee ama muongeleshe, kuna venye bado atafeel ni kama you're speaking to me because you just have words to say, but you don't really understand what I'm going through. Because environmental rejection messes up with how you think. It messes up with your perceptions. There are certain things that will come in your life to confirm that you're a rejected child, you're rejected, and there's nowhere you're going. And even there are men. There are men I know who are very rich, but they stay in the club, not because that they want, but because they feel like there's a voice of rejection following them. Ukifollow hiyo historia utaona unapata ukijana alizaliwa maybe akariziwa hivyo na single mother, ama mother aliwatoka akawaacha akariziwa na shosho yake akang'ang'ana kabisa. Jamaa akaenda high school, he passed very well, went to campus, graduated, succeeded, he managed to get money, but there is something in him that was never dealt with. So this is a man moving in a big car, but he's a broken man because this thing was never dealt with. So it's an environmental rejection. And if men are not careful, it can be passed to your children. Because that pain and that hurt, kitu yenyewe inafanya, it messes up with your subconscious mind as a man. There are many men whom I know, they are wealthy, they have the capacity, but they cannot even stand before 10 people. Because they don't even have the composure. It was messed up when they were young. Either their actions that were done. Jamal kwa visiting there, kuna mzazi mwenye aliyeka kumvisit. The very small actions. There's a story told by a certain young man. He was a great footballer in Europe. And this young man, one day walipigwa 8-2 wakicheza football. Na coach akakuja. Coach akamwambia mazee, tokeni kwa field, because you guys are wasting time. It's been 45 minutes already and there's nothing you've done. First half isha. And he told the coach, coach, my dad told me as long as the referee has not blown the whistle, you shouldn't blow the whistle upon yourself. And so there are many people who no one told them not to blow the whistle, because at the right time that they were supposed to be told that, no one told them that. When a child is playing or running around the house, wakianguka wanaangalianga kama umemwona. And when a child is doing something, they must make sure that you've seen. And by default, you in empowerment juu ukiangalia hormones of communication, kuna dopamine, oxytocin, cortisol, na adrenaline. All these 4 hormones have their own work. Adrenaline and cortisol builds the internal confidence. And the internal confidence, it's raised by small actions. Kushikwa mkono ukitembea, umeingia kwa nyumba, unapata food hapo, mzazi amekaa kando yako. Very minimal actions. They speak to the mind of a child. They speak the mind of greatness into someone. And if someone now does not have these people to hold their hand, environmental rejection is released.
Takes over.
Yes. So the first type of rejection.
Wow.
This is what a man like Joseph also faced. Growing up without a mother. The man has big dreams, sharing with his brothers, but no one is paying keen attention. That's environmental rejection. Unaangalia tena mse kama there's another guy in the Bible, Jephthah.
Yes.
The Bible says in the book of Judges 11, he was a great warrior, but the son of a prostitute. So you come to realize that there were actions that were done to him. Your seclusion.
Yes.
Unaangalia kwa family gathering, WhatsApp group ikitengenezwa, kuna wale wanapatiwa high priority. Mkienda family gathering, kuna ule mwenye akifika, familia mzima, watu kuna venye wana react. Wewe kuna venye umekaa family gathering, kuna mtu ako na haraka na wewe. So unakam kurealize. Na nakumbuka hadi nikigrow up nikiwa high school, kuna time nilipigwa ma suspension kadhaa. And I have a cousin called Brian. So kuna auntie yangu tulikuwa tumeenda kumuona. And then akatoa joke. Ilikuja kaa joke, lakini hiyo joke ilikuwa na meaning. Akaita huyo cousin yangu, my brain umekuja. Alafu mimi akaniita maini umefika. And so ilikuja kaa joke, but chini ya maji nilikaa chini na time yenye gari ilikwenda kuoshwa. Tumekaa na cousin yangu, but tunasikia mimi ndo ndaitwa gari oshwe. Ama tumemaliza kukula, meza ni chafu, unasikia. Wewe hii unafanya nini? So kuna actions zilikuwa zinafanyika na kama kurealize sana ni treat hivi juu hivi. So takam kurealize environmental rejection ni kitu very subconscious. Unapata kuna zile instances zitakam. Na environmental rejection unfortunately pia imeingia kwa church. Unapata kuna watu wanatreatiwa in a certain way. Maybe kuna mtu anafanya wedding kwa church. Kuna venye wedding itatangazwa, itapigwa hype. Mwingine akifanya wedding inatangazwa tu as a formality. Utapata kuna mwenye tuseme kuna funeral, kuna venye watu watengeneza WhatsApp group, basi hadi atatokea. Lakini kuna mtu mwenye kani story yake, hakuna mtu ako na haraka. Wewe do venye utadu. So environmental rejection hadi bado iko church. Kuna watu kwa church lakini bado wanafiliaje tuko rejected. Utapata kuna mtu akifanya kitu ndogo, kuna venye itasemwa sana ku acknowledge. Kuna mwingine akifanya kitu great, inabeba tu as a formality. Environmental rejection bado inakama hapo hivyo into play. So ni kitu yenye iko around the society, iko around the environment. Ni kitu isemwangi na words. Unapata kuna vile unakuwa treated to in a very funny way. Na at the end of the day ni kitu inakujanga na silent thoughts. Au taisho mse. Jusa kuna venye environmental rejection ikikuja, au na evidence ya kuprove ati hivi ndio mse alisema. Na huwezi explain venye alifanya. Lakini inakuwa affecting subconsciously. Maze kuna time nili launch books proud. Na after ku launch book, wale wase nilikuwa na expect maybe wasimame na mimi au kushughulika. Na so nilikuwa like, maze I thought you guys can stand with me. Na at the same time nilikuwa naona venye na react wengine wakifanya vitu zingine hiyo support. Na uko like, okay. And so I had to also build up muscles. Environmental rejection imewa dreams mingi. Ulianzisha biz ukidhani mabichi zako watakusupport. Ukaform WhatsApp group. Hakuna msema itokea. Mabichi zako wanajua uko na business. Bauta hiyo na wamepost. Na wakikuja wanataka kujua nwe vitu free na watalipa on time. Uko na YouTube channel. Wasa wanaweza angusha memes 30. Au utaiona wamepost link yako. Na uko like, mazee, I thought you guys are my friends. Kuna time kwa kana kuzo wangu kejani. Baradi yako amesubscribe YouTube channel yangu. Na yet nilikuwa nampeanga fare. Nimetoka kulipua gig, nampatia fare aende shule. Fare yenye imetoka kwa hiyo YouTube channel, out of hizo opportunities imetoka kwa YouTube channel. Kuna nilikuwa ameacha kitu kwa simu yake, kwa wale YouTube aje subscribe. Kaniambia sijui nini mbaya na simu. Nika subscribe 2 weeks later kucheck tena ali unsubscribe. So nilikuwa like, okay. So environmental rejection inakuja in form of actions, in form of support. Time you expect wase watoke, but kuna mentor wangu alinisort kitu fulani. Alinishow everybody is allowed to walk away from your dream. You're the only one who's not allowed to walk away. Because when God gave you the dream, it was so personal. He never called a committee or a conference. He addressed it to you. And so environmental rejection sometimes adikani amta. Nambianga tu say when your dream is too big, some things are too small. And so it is rather you focus on the dream. Now if you focus on the dream, there are things that you'll grow out of. And you'll be able to build capacity to grow out of that environment of rejection. I'm writing a book called Rejected but Blessed.
Wow.
And I'm looking at many people who are rejected, but they were still blessed. And you have two options. It's either you focus on the rejected part or on the blessed part.
Amazing. And how do you deal with that? Now, supposing somebody has just listened, akajua kwamba enyewe mimi shida napitia saizi ni because I was rejected. How do I get out of that? Because ina sound sana ni kama this is something you can't control. Inatoka kwa wase wako outside of you. So nitajiprotect aje, na kama nisha feel hivyo, how do I come out so that I can pursue my dreams?
Well, environmental rejection, you got 3 angles. The first angle is spiritual. Somehow it's also something spiritual. Now this is what happens. I wish ningekuwa na kitu ya kuchora. Next time tutakuwa na kitu ya kuchora. Now, kitu yenyewe ina happen. Environmental rejection inakuanga strategy ya kumaliza dreams na destiny za wase. So tuseme uni madhe. Inakuanga very long term short. Chadi tutumie hizi flowers. So uni madhe, sendo? Madha wako na mzae wako. Utapata madha wako na mzae wako walikuwa rejected na wazazi wake. Maybe wazazi wake mzae wake alikuwa polygamous. So kuna venye ilimu affect tuseme academically. Hakupatanga school fees, hakuendanga shule on time. Kuna tu vitu zile happen. So in the process masako akangangana. Out of hiyo kungangana, bado kuna tension na affirmation yenye kupatiwa. Sasa wewe ushatokea shaingia marriage. Mwenye ameingia marriage, motivation yake ya life haitakuwa inspired by grace, itakuwa inspired by pain. So ataipitisha bado kwako. So kuna venye maybe umetoka shule na hujapita, umepata C na na feel kama hii C bado umeanguka na anangangana. Kuna venye atakupiga, kuna venye ataongea. Jo ako inspired by pain, hata kulipa hiyo school fees. Haiko inspired by grace. So at the end of the day, your rejection pia inapitishwa kwako. Juu shule walimu wanakuambia ni mjinga. Ukuja home bado ni failure. At the end of the day, ukiendanga church watu wanakuulizanga ulikuwa namba. So at the end of the day, it's like all over the environment inakuremind. Kuna mademu wengi sana wenye wamehata na wakapata early pregnancy, not because of sex but because of an affirmation issue. Because home anaambiwa negative words, church negative words, and then anapata na chali mwenye every day anamwambia positive words. Anapata msemo anamshikia ma chocolate, jamaa anashinda amemwafahamu. Na at this given point, jamaa akisema I want us to have sex, and if you're not having sex, let's break up. Them and I feel like the whole world is coming down. So I agree. Jumseli alisema when a girl loves you, the best thing she'll give is herself. And when a man loves you, the best thing he'll give you, he'll push you to your dreams and push you to God. So kitu yenyewe ina happen, it's an affirmation issue. Na inakuanga very spiritual. At the end of the day, masako ni victim wa kitu ili happen out of spiritual alignment. Mzazi wake pia ni kitu very spiritual. So inakuanga a cycle. Unapatanga in certain families, kitu inamaliza wase maybe ni alcohol. It's a pattern in that generation. Ama unapata wengine ni failed marriages. Unapata wengine ni wasio fight, wasio kwa depressed, wengine ni suicide. So kitu yenyewe ina happen, hiyo cycle itakuja in different languages, but end result ni the same. Huyu maybe anakunywa pombe out of frustration, huyu anakunywa pombe out of a failed marriage, huyu anakunywa pombe out of lacking peace, huyu anakunywa pombe out of work issues. At the end of the day, kila mtu anakunywa pombe, unanipata? Na unakam ku discover it affect us spiritually. It affect the relationship with God. Wasa watagrow na bitterness, wasa watagrow na hatred, wasa watagrow na questions. There are a lot of things at the end of the day in affect family spiritually. Wasa wana capacity ya ku rise up beyond certain levels. Inamaliza wealth, inaua destinies. So kitu yenye wasa walikuwa fulfill in 3 years, it will take 30 years. Ni mtu ana ni success. Unaona kununua gari msaki wa 35 ni success na baraka ya Mungu. But God anasema I had a bigger plan. So in the process of wasting time, there are many things that happen in between. So it is a spiritual issue. Apart from just being a psychological issue, it's a very spiritual issue. And that is why now you must arise in prayer. Because environmental rejection inakuanga meant to kill people. Kuna madhe nilikuwa patana naye, madhe ya beshte yangu fulani. And nikiwa class 4 nilikuwa nenda kwa cyber yake. Na she was very very wealthy. Cyber yake ilikuwa ina do fit, alikuwa na cyber M-Pesa shop na alikuwa anauza popcorn within one place. Na nikaa alikuwa ameshika market hiyo place, wase wanampenda. So everyone anamjua, unapata sana watembea kutoka mbali wanaenda hiyo shop ya umadhe. But this lady, time nimefika form 1 kasikia anakunywa pombe, ameshafunga shop, vitu zilisha auctioniwa. Now mtu wake alikuwa very close na mimi, so kama kufuatilia story yake. Na ukanae chini. Nikakaa kudiscover it's a rejection issue. Because akiwa mtu hii Masaki alikuwa paralyzed. Na mzee wake alikufa hadi kupata chance ya kuona mzee wake. Na huyu Mathe alikuwa the best in Kisii County KCB, alikuwa number 3 Kisii County mzima. Akaitwa Kenya High. Vile aliitwa Kenya High, jua kuwa na pesa ya kuafford kumpeleka Kenya High, wakauza hiyo certificate.
Kuuza.
Walibidi wameuza certificate ya national school, akapelekwa day school leo pesa yenye waliget. Akafika form 3 akadrop out, na ndiye alikuwa number 1 consistently. Masaki alikuwa paralyzed, yeye alikuwa toka shule anaondosha Masaki. Na bado kulikuwa na anko yake alikuwa struggle na ulevi. So bado ndiye alikuwa ananikana take care of the whole family, but dem alikuwa anakuwa number 1. Aendi shule siku zote saa zingine, but akikuja anakuwa number 1. Form 3 kafika akadrop out. When ali drop out, ikabidi get into marriage at a very early stage. Ku get into marriage bado alikuwa brilliant. Grace ya God ilikuwa upon her. Akaingia into business ikaprosper. After some time, 5 years later, kuingia into marriage, husband yake akaanza kumpiga. Hadi anamwambia lale chini kwa floor, hataki kudoze naye. So alikuwa na doze hapo hivyo kwa floor for 2 years, akivumilia akiexpect marriage ita change. So aka walk out of that marriage after 2 years later. Na out of that ilikuwa an economic crisis. So ikabidi amechukua loans ndio business survive. Bwana yake alikataa kulipia watu school fees, watu 4. Na watu 4 two are from different fathers. So bado hapo hivyo ilikuwa rejection issue. So ikabidi achukue loan. In the process kuchukua loan, vitu zikafail. Business haikuishia venye inaishia. Kila kitu ikakuwa auction. Mbishi zake wakamgeuzia. Church ikaanza kumgossip. So yeye pia nena yaka akawithdraw kutoka story ya church. In the process, out of all these things, mtoi wake maliza form 4, firstborn, aka drop out. Sahi ni donda, yeye ni conductor. Wa pili mwenye ako high school, jamani alianza akipata ma B+ ma A-. Sahi ana fail apata ma C. Akona mtoi mwingine ako class 8, very brilliant. Yeye ndiye anakuanga number 2. Sometimes atakuja home na mabishi zake apate madhake amelewa, alianguka kwa mtaro, achukue mama yake aende amuoshe. By the end of the day bado mtu atakuwa number 1. Akona mwingine mdogo bado very brilliant. Nini happen? The same cycle kwa life yake ilifanya akose school fees. Na out of that voice ya rejection ina campaign happen kwa watu wake. Huyo firstborn ako brilliant, inajirepeat. It's a cycle of rejection. Na Masaki pia alikuwa rejected na relatives akiwa mgonjwa. Hapo ndo Masaki akakuwa completely paralyzed na akakufa. So na kama kurealize it's a cycle, nikamuuliza kuhusu story ya shosho yake. Shosho yake pia ali struggle na pombe. Out of struggle na pombe akafukuzwa kwa marriage, na pia shosho yake akang'ang'ana kabisa. So it's a cycle of rejection. Blessed people but rejected. So when you look at her life, this is a very innocent person. You might judge her. You might meet her in a club and you'll be like, this woman is confused. Who are these type of people? You might meet the son, and maybe the guy is passing through his own issues, and see him taking alcohol or smoking bang. But in a real sense, it's a spiritual issue. So I can say environmental rejection, about the solution is very spiritual. You'll have to enter into prayer. Because at this level, you're dealing with altars. You're dealing with covenants that were made within the family. And so you'll have to get to a place of prayer. Now be a God that this thing cannot take me out. So number 1, it's something that is very spiritual. You'll have to make very spiritual decisions. Enter into a place of prayer. And you'll have to tell yourself, I cannot die at this point. I must move past this. I'm not worth this. God has given me and He has blessed me with more capacity and ability more than this. And so you'll have to enter into a place of fasting and also praying. Why fast? Because you are dealing with an altar that has already been serviced. Maybe this is something, maybe in your family, msema ameifungwa doa witchcraft. Mzee alikuwa ameenda kutafuta wealth ikabako. Kuna madhe fulani mwenye alikuwa ameenda kutafuta mavitu za kuleta wealth kwa family. Akaambiwa make sure mtu wa kwanza mtakutana na yeye asikuwe family member. Venye aliingia mtu wake ndiye alikuja kama mag kijana, and then the young man became mad. And so you'll come to realize that the young man might be rejected by the society because of his insanity, but in real sense he's also a victim out of something that happened spiritually. And so you'll come to realize that this is an altar that has already been serviced, because this is an altar of witchcraft speaking in the life of this young man. There are many people who it is out of spiritual issues. Maybe someone has ever killed someone in your family, and those people made a vow and they said, in this family no one will ever succeed. This family no one will ever settle in marriage. And so you've been born and you're a victim. Or maybe your family wasema ibado out of corruption. You know, something has ever happened. Na walibado na hiyo out of kuiba hiyo do kuna msee alikufa, alikuwa victim. Msee alikuwa na government ya office ya government na wakapiga msee corruption scandal. Something happened, someone was taken to prison. And out of that there is some injustice that is following you, and it is a sound that is speaking loudly. You know, or maybe you have been born from a stepmother who used to treat other children badly. And so you're a victim of all these things, and these children used to cry day and night. And so there are voices that are following you. Or other things, kuna tu wase wenye maybe wamekaa chini na wakasema hapana, hii kitu haitaifanyika hivi. And so it is a sound. You see, when you read the Bible in the book of Genesis, see God aliambia Cain, I'll put a mark on you, so that when men see you, mara kwanza Cain alisema, the mark upon me is that men will kill me when they see me. God akasema, now I will change that mark. I'll put a mark on you so that when people see you, they want to kill you. Meaning, there is a mark upon everyone's life. There is a mark of favor. There's a mark of grace. There's also a mark of failure. There's also a mark of rejection. You will carry it spiritually, because the mark wasn't something physical. But men used to see him. There's something that men can see you and they'll get attracted. There's something that men can see in you and they will invest in you. At the same time, there's something that men can see you and refuse to give you jobs. They can refuse to give you opportunities. They know nothing about you, but when they just see you, they feel like, I'm not associated with this person. Yes. What will make people watch your YouTube channel? Yet in Kenya, there are more than 3 million content creators. What will make someone sit down to be waiting for the next episode? It is a mark upon a person. That someone can just look at you and say like, who dem anaweza kuwa maybe at hit ana studio bigi, but kuna kitu iko ndani udem ndakuwa namsikiza. And someone makes a personal covenant with themselves. Why? Because there is a mark upon you. Umeona wase wenye wako YouTube, si hata wanapiga content ati wamepiga research. Hawajasoma hadi books. Jamaa anasema tu vitu za kawaida. But in real sense, unaangalia following ako nayo ni huge. Umeona mapasta wenye hata waongei Kiingereza. Unasikia hadi Kiswahili wanaongea wanashrabu Kikuyu. But you go and see the favor upon their life. You are like, what? What is influencing the life of this man? Angalia mse kama Apostle William Kimani. Jamaa si ati hata akona ati kizungumzito. But angalia grace yenye ana command. Uta realize it is something spiritual. At this capacity you can't say it's experience. It is something that a man carries that is inside. The same way a man can carry rejection, he can also carry a spirit of acceptance. And so you must start releasing that energy, that this thing is not part of me. And there are more than 1,000 scriptures in the Bible zenye zina agree na acceptance na zinatoa rejection. Ukisema the Lord is my shepherd, you are agreeing in the spiritual realm that I might not have a father. I've not been born with two parents. I've not been born in an advantaged family, but I have a shepherd who is always watching me. Ukisema that God is my rewarder, is my provider. Whatever you're releasing is that. You are agreeing that there is a circumstance, but there is something that I know. So it is something that you deal with it spiritually. Number two, it is something that you also deal with it psychologically. You will need to have several conversations with yourself. Okay, chini ujiambie ni aje, hii kitu ili happen, but even if it happened, there is a reality upon my life, there is a prophecy upon my life, there are dreams that I carry. Hapo ndo unajiambianga, when my dream is too big, some things are too small. Hapo ndo unastanding at a place of greatness, and you start releasing life and voices upon yourself. And so you'll have to withdraw, pull out of crowds, and have real conversations with yourself. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah. So you have said we have 3 ways of dealing with it. You've mentioned spiritually, psychologically. What's the third way?
Yeah, so apart from actually the psychological part, there is the aspect of like having conversations with yourself, speaking to yourself constantly, and also there is the aspect of bringing in vision in the psychological still.
Speaking of that, let me interrupt you.
Yes.
Sorry. When you say speaking to yourself, is that what people call manifestation?
Well, speaking to yourself varies. There are people who speak to themselves through writings. There are people who speak to themselves through them going to meditate, and they can be able to have conversations with themselves. There are people who speak to themselves through drawing. So you'll have to understand what really works for you. Now, manifestation is just a different language of faith, but in another world. You get? Whatever people say that I'm manifesting, it's like looking at something and saying, this one I must do it. Now for us as Christians, we call that faith. For them, I don't know whatever these other people call it, but whatever people call manifestation, in simple basic terms, it's just faith. Seeing something and saying this thing, I'll get it. It's only that sasa hawajui nini wamefanya, but you ni faith wameweka. into reality. Na wakisema hii kitu lazima niipate.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Now speaking to yourself, it's more of a language of affirmation, more of you spending time with yourself and getting to speak to your scars and telling your scars, you know what? Someone said, I won't leave the scar, but a scar leaves a story that says I can survive. And so you'll have to speak to your wounds until they heal and become scars. And even if they become scars, you'll have to speak again courage to yourself to a point where you will never fear hiding your scars. And so in that capacity now, that's how you'll be coming out of that rejection. And then also one of the ways also to come out of all these things psychologically, it's by going to raise other people who have passed through what you've passed through. In the process, it also gives you the muscles and the strength. Someone said that when the cheek of a hen is trying to come out of the eggshell, the hen does not help it come out of the eggshell because the hen wants it to build muscles to break the eggshell so that it can gain the muscles to walk. And there are things that God will see you passing through, but He will not intervene because God also wants you to build the muscles and build the capacity for it. God knows that you have this YouTube channel. God knows that you need a studio, you need a camera and a videographer, but you will not bring them. Sometimes just to test your resilience. That is why Morgan Freeman said, I prayed for peace, God gave me war. I prayed for purpose, He gave me emptiness. I prayed for wisdom, He gave me problems. I prayed for friends, everyone left me. He prayed for wealth, God gave him poor people. He said, God does not give you what you want, He gives you what you need. And it is only in that capacity where you actually see His power in a very tangible way. And so what God does, there are times that He will see you passing through the waters and passing through pain, but He will not speak because He also wants you to build the muscles for the future. There are many people who have lost jobs because God also wanted them to open a company, but they will not see it that way at that time. And God sometimes will want you to understand the pain of losing a company. And so as men are passing through rejection, sometimes God will not speak. He will only give you the grace because sometimes we pray thinking that maybe He will answer through solving the matter. But sometimes He answers differently. Someone said, you can be praying for God to give you a miracle, but what about if you are the miracle? Because sometimes you might be the miracle. You're asking Him to answer your prayers, but you might be the miracle that He wants you to answer. That you, through surviving that process, it's a miracle by itself, you know. And so you'll have to understand that there are few things that do happen. There's a pastor who used to heal so many sick people, but the wife was paralyzed, and the wife was never healed for 28 years. And people used to ask him, you're healing many people, but in your own house there is sickness. In your own house, Satan is sitting there. Why don't you stop preaching to all these other people and deal with your family first? And this pastor kept on asking God questions. Why is all these things happening? Why am I that I'm preaching to other people and they're seeing the power of God? But when it comes to me, there's nothing that's happening. The man kept on asking questions. But then God one day told him that He never called you to heal your wife and your family. He called you to heal the world. But God also said something else. He said, the fact that you're preaching to other people and your wife is sick, but you've never lost trust in me, that's what I want to communicate to the world. That's the biggest miracle. That you still held your faith, despite the fact, you see, when God says David is a man after my own heart, yet there are men like Moses, men like Abraham, men who saw God. But God does not say these are men after my own heart. There is a revelation to it. Because David was so much rejected by all these other people, but that never made him question God. The fact that men were leaving him, but he still said, you are my shepherd. I look upon the mountains. Where does my help come from? He always knew where help came from. He stayed around Saul, but David never trusted Saul. He trusted in God as the king who can lead his life. And up to that point, that is where God says, this is a man after my own heart. This is a man who failed. And he could have had a chance to be guilty, but he never went away from it. It is when you get into your room, this is where you deal with yourself psychologically. You look at the track records and the things that you've conquered. There are people who have survived. You are rejected by your dad, you are rejected by your mom as you grew up. You've passed in 7 relationships where people is at break zote. Friends have disappointed you. And when you look at these track records, it means that there is something that God has been building in you internally. And you must start questioning yourself. Someone said if you find yourself in the streets, maybe God is sending you a letter to build a children's home. You find yourself being sent away from school fees. Because of school fees, you'll find that maybe God wants you to build a school. Said if you're fired at work or you're passing through a hard work environment, maybe God is telling you to begin your own company. And sometimes He's sending you a letter. Every problem comes as a letter from God to man, telling him, this is what I want you to do. And so at some point, instead of playing the victim, start also looking at the other flip side and ask yourself, which letter are you trying to send? Because in the process you'll come to discover that there's a letter God is trying to send. He might not speak it in words, but that letter is coming very tangibly. You see, there's a man who was an event organizer, and there's a day where the DJ failed him, the sound guy failed him, the camera guy failed him, and he had arrived at the venue of the wedding. And after that, that's the first time the man decided to step out, and he bought all those equipments and employed 16 people after all these people had failed him. And after that, when he went to pray, God told him, I saw you have the faith, you have the capacity, but you've been hiring people. I wanted you to buy your own equipment.
Wow.
So the first one, the second one is psychological. The third one is the aspect of personal decisions. There are people who are rejected, but they still feel comfortable in staying around the environment of rejection. Because what happens is that if someone has undergone environmental rejection, at a certain point, even if you meet a guy and he's toxic, as long as he's able to affirm you, even in the midst of being toxic, you'll still stay there and you'll still feel like he's doing you a favor. And even for men, there are different men who have been disappointed by their friends, they have been disappointed in relationships, but because they undergone rejection in a heavy way and no one ever appreciated them, at a certain point when people come through for you, feel like it's a favor. Have you ever bought for someone lunch and they tell you thank you like 5 times? And they even still remember, they'll post that picture, they'll put it in records, and you feel like this is only lunch. But to them it's like you've done something bigger. And so what happens is that you'll have to get to a place also of personal decisions. There are radical decisions that you'll have to make. Stepping out in an environment where you feel like, you know what, this is a place where I'm being rejected. There are decisions you'll have to make. Because there are many people who can feel the heat. They can put their finger on the cooker, feel the heat, but they still don't want to remove it because they feel like, if I remove the finger here, it is too much cold out there, and I don't know how I'll survive. So they say, afadhali nichomwe na kuka kuliko niingie kwa winter, because hapo hadi sita survive. But you see what happens? Sometimes God will let you risk some decisions, and in the process of risking that decision, God now starts empowering you. So what happens is that there are personal decisions that you'll have to make. You'll have to sit down and have a vision for yourself, and so that when all these other things fail, you can go back home and face your vision. Tell yourself, the relationship might have failed, my parents might have failed, but I had a vision to live by. I had a business that I had opened. Let me service this thing until it grows. This is not my child, this is not my project. I will invest in this. Also, having a strong spiritual life, so that when all these other things fail, God shall never fail. And so those are the 3 things that can be able to pull up people whenever they are facing environmental rejection.
Amazing.
Yes.
Now our time is far much spent, and I would have loved for us to continue, but I believe we can now make this to be a series.
Yes.
If you say yes, I'll be very excited.
Sure, you can do it, Maze. You can do it. Let's do it.
I think that will be for the best.
Sure.
So, lady or gentleman, a lot has been shared. I feel like you are speaking to me, honestly. My heart is full, and I feel like my eyes have been opened. I can see the world differently. I can see myself differently. Now I understand why I've done some things the way I've done them, and how I can change. So thank you so much for speaking to me first.
Thank you.
And live.
Yes.
And also for speaking to our audience. And I believe we'll get a chance to talk about the next type of rejection.
Sure.
You've said you're writing the book Rejected but Blessed.
Yes.
When are we expecting it?
January, February there.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. We'll be waiting.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I'm so encouraged. I really want us to continue, and I know we will.
We shall.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I am so blessed. I hope you are blessed as well. So much has been shared. Please write down in the comments what you have received as your takeaway point. And if there's any question you have for Walubengo, can they reach out to you?
Yes, sure.
Awesome. I'm going to share his contacts in the description box below so that you can also talk to him directly. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the next one.
Thank you so much.
I was your host, Rozitta, my guest.
BennyHinn Walubengo.
Until the next one, bye guys.
Wow.